Hello friends, my name is Leigh and I create videos about photography as an art and as a lifestyle. There is no doubt about it, film is back. Why? I think that there are many reasons, and I don't think it's too much different from the return of vinyl records or vintage decor and the human desire to try interesting things while having some fun at the same time. You may or may not have realized that our own collection of film gear has been growing exponentially in the past couple of years. Have we spoken much about it? We haven't. We're normally preoccupied showing you the latest in digital and mirrorless technology. Today is one step toward changing that. You've reached out, many of you with film cameras now, even if you grew up in the digital world. Some of you are searching for that tangible feeling, the romance that it seems only film can truly bring. You want to capture a scene or a moment on something physical, something that you physically own, something that can be physically stored, something that exists itself at the moment of capture. But there's one small problem. You've got the gear, or you're thinking about it, but you're not entirely sure how it works. If that is you, and I know that it's some of you from the questions that I've gotten over the years, let's take a giant step today toward fixing that. So by the end of this video, you'll understand the basics of a film camera. First, I want to thank KEH for sponsoring this portion of the video. Nearly every film body that we own was purchased on KEH.com. Many of the lenses too. When it comes to purchasing used gear, I know what to expect with KEH. I know that they test the gear that they sell. I know that I can trust the grading listed with each item. And I know that on the outside chance that there is an issue, KEH has a 180-day warranty. That's amazing for used gear. And if you are looking for something used, be it an antique film camera or lens, a modern mirrorless camera system, or anything in between, I have a link in the description of this video for you, along with a discount code. If you are interested in selling some gear that you own, there is a link for you in the description as well. Using those links and codes help to support this channel, so thank you to those of you that use those links. And of course, thank you again to KEH for sponsoring this portion of today's video. Okay, so you've bought a camera, a vintage one, or you're thinking about it. You know that it's something that you would like to try at least. And let's face it, even super basic vintage SLR cameras like this Canon AE1 are beautiful works of art. They're made out of durable materials. Many old cameras are metal, or at least partially metal, and they make the authentic sounds of photography. No speakers playing shutter clicking sounds here. The sounds that you hear are the sounds of artistry. It's not trying to be something that it's not. It's truly the thing that it is. And the wonderful thing about much of this older gear, it often works as well today as it did in 1979. You've bought some film, maybe some new film, maybe some expired film, maybe color, maybe black and white, and you're ready, but you don't know what the next step is. So let's talk through it. A couple of years ago, Raymond got us a couple of these Kodak cameras for Christmas. The great thing about these is that you load the film, you load a battery for the flash, and you shoot and then manually wind, and then rinse and repeat. There's not much to it. I will link to these two that we have in the description. These are essentially reloadable, disposable cameras, and that is not a knock on them. They are what they say they are, and they are a super inexpensive and a really fun way to scratch that film photography itch. I just had mine out on the trails yesterday. And you know what, if something happens to it, like it falls in a lake or it falls down the side of a mountain, it's not going to entirely ruin your day. Where I've seen many of you go though is bigger. SLR cameras, the multi-generational predecessor to the more recent wave of DSLR cameras. The distinguishing characteristics of an SLR camera are that the lens is removable and interchangeable. The mirror inside and the prism in here that lets you see through the lens, through the viewfinder. And then you click the shutter the mirror flips up and exposes the film in here. Then, depending on the camera, it is either going to wind the film for you to the next frame, or you do it manually. Also, older SLRs tend to be manually focused, while in the late 80s and beyond, autofocus became all the rage. We have both types here, from fully manual classics like this Pentax K1000 up through this Nikon F6, which came into existence in the early digital age. In fact, let's start with the K1000. One of the more common ways that these were sold and still are today on the secondhand market is with a 50mm f1.8 prime lens, or in this case, a Sears 50mm f1.7 lens. Yeah, Sears. Lenses like these are not zoom lenses. They're often manually focused. Your lens will have a focus ring, which you twist one way or the other to move where the camera is focusing, either closer to you or further away from you. Your viewfinder will often have what is called a split image rangefinder, where you line up the image that is in the split view. When that area of the image is lined up, your image is in focus. Lenses like these allow a lot of light into the camera and creative effects due to that f1.8 or wider aperture. It will let you shoot from dawn to dusk because of that wide aperture, and they tend to be inexpensive lenses. When trying to achieve a shallow depth of field, or when you are shooting in low light, you'll probably be using those wider apertures. But when you need everything in focus, like a landscape image, adjust the aperture on the lens barrel to f8 or even higher. Making that adjustment to f8 is going to close down the aperture and let less light into the camera. How can you compensate for that? Two ways. One, assuming that you've already loaded film, you will want to slow down the shutter speed. This lets light hit the film for longer, balancing out the effect of that smaller aperture. For moving subjects, you may want 1/250th of a second or faster, but for static scenes like landscapes, you can shoot handheld at 1/30th to 1/60th, and with a tripod, you can go slower than that. In many older cameras, there is a needle or even some fancy LED lighting to show you when the camera believes that you have the correct balance of aperture and shutter speed for a good exposure on the film that you're using. Now, if you're setting up for a low light shoot, you may want ASA 400 or ASA 800 film. These will allow you to shoot in lower light conditions without making the shutter speed too slow. However, you will see more film grain in higher speed film like ASA 400 and higher. ASA 100 and 200 film will have less visible grain, producing sharper, higher quality images, but you will need a combination of good lighting and a lens like this that can open up to some of the widest apertures available. The wonderful thing about this older gear is to get these high quality, low light results, the cameras and the lenses are not too expensive. Now, I don't want to deceive you because film and developing expense are much higher now than they were decades ago when all of this gear was new. Setting the aperture, which film to use, which shutter speeds work best for you. This all comes down to personal preference. Shooting at f1.8 with some separation between the subject and background can bring you beautiful portraits. Compare that with the unmistakable look of analog film, and you can produce effects that will have your digital-only friends seeking out the latest Instagram filters for their pedestrian cell phone images. You will also want to practice loading film. Understanding your particular camera's method of rewinding and unloading the film also. Fortunately, most camera manuals, even ancient ones, are available online, and there are plenty of YouTube videos showing these ins and outs for specific cameras. And when it comes to batteries for that needle meter, a quick Google search or a look through a downloaded camera manual will be your friend there. More recent film cameras, like our lower end autofocus Nikon N65 or the mighty F6, have many automated features that you can choose to use, including autofocus and program mode, which will make many of those aperture and shutter speed decisions for you, giving you less control, but also fewer things to think about when you are getting the shot. Raymond and I prefer aperture priority most often, giving us more control over the selective focus that lenses like a 50mm f1.8 offer. Our FM3A and many later generation manual focus camera bodies will allow you to set the aperture, and then we'll use the correct shutter speed automatically to get a proper exposure. To do this right, you will set the film speed, that ASA number, on the camera body. It's often integrated into the shutter speed dial, or a dial here on the left. Here on the Nikon FG, I tell the camera the film speed I am using with this dial. Some cameras will use what is called DX encoding to read the film speed off of some special visual encoding on your film roll to automatically set the film speed appropriately so that the camera makes the correct decisions. Think of the encoding as a vintage QR code. Your camera's manual will tell you if your film body has this capability. One of the most important things to do is to shoot and learn your preferences. Shoot a roll at wide apertures like f1.8. Shoot another roll where you limit yourself to f8 or f16 and study the results. It's relatively inexpensive to collect a few different prime lenses of different focal lengths. And zoom lenses, although they weren't nearly as high quality as they are today, are certainly available as well. We don't shoot with it much, but our Nikon 80 to 200mm f4 push-pull lens is a joy to use. Even if we're just shooting birds or squirrels with it, we kind of feel like we're 1970s press photographers using the one-touch barrel ring to zoom and focus with one ring at the same time. You want that vintage feel? Lenses like this one deliver it 100 times over. This particular lens is a lot sharper at f5.6 than f4. Keep that in mind if this gem is on your shopping list. And you will find that's actually the case with many vintage lenses, especially the zoom lenses. Closing that aperture down just a little bit will improve your results considerably. The lens design and the manufacturing, it wasn't what it is today with today's mirrorless marvels. Do not expect perfect technical quality, and the film itself will be nowhere near as sharp as your digital images, but that's part of the art here, and it helps to shape the overall experience of shooting with film. What you do end up with are prime lenses that are reasonably sharp. I mean, we're not talking about edge-to-edge sharpness here. And each lens will have its own unique characteristics in terms of how the overall image is rendered. There are hundreds, perhaps thousands of different film bodies out there today. Fixed lens, rangefinders, twin lens reflex, and SLR cameras, and even some oddities like stereoscopic and panoramic film cameras. So if you do have any questions, let us all know down in the comments. If I can't find the answers you seek, I am sure that someone else here in the community can find an answer for you. On your way down to those comments, give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you to KEH for continuing to support this channel, and thank you for watching.